Welcome back. 200 points lower for the Nifty. Let's take note of the commodities action. The government is set to introduce the 2025 vegetable oil products regulation order next week. The new regulation mandates industry reporting on production, sales and pricing. In fact, Manisha Gupta caught up with Pradeep Chowdhry, who's the MD of Gemini Edibles and Fats India, began by asking him about the factors behind rising edible oil prices. Listen in.
Edible oil prices should not be seen for a short term, because India has been deficient on edible oils in terms of our requirement for a long time. One of the factors is low prices. Farmers are attracted towards other crops and not sowing oilseed because of the prices. One of the reasons. There are various other reasons. So we should see edible oil prices in the context or perspective of the last 40 years. Then you will realize that today's prices are much lower than other agri prices. So I beg to differ. And taking a short-term view is not the right approach.
How would you look at the prices moving from here on? The other concern in the market clearly has been that as the duty goes higher, the consumers get the, not the benefit, but that reaction immediately. But when the duty is cut, that isn't passed to consumers fast enough.
Not at all. It's not true. Because we had a meeting with the ministry itself the last time when the duty was reduced. See, what happens typically is that when the duty is about to be reduced or increased, either way, there is a lot of murmur in the market. So mostly, few weeks earlier than the actual change in duties, it is already in the market. So the prices start reacting much before the event. So, like this time around when the duties were reduced, 80% of the duty reduction benefit had already been passed on to the consumers. So, after the event, the balance 20% was passed on. So, the industry is so competitive with so much of overcapacity, there is no scope of anybody profiteering from any duty changes.
55 to 60% of dependence on imports, and with so much happening outside, whether it's about geopolitics or tariffs or the protectionism moves that we've seen come in for countries, and then the whole biofuel mandate that the producing countries are getting into, food security for India, especially when it comes to edible oil, do you see that as a concern?
Surely, because dependence, you're saying 55%, my estimate is higher.
Okay. What is your estimate?
My estimate is 2/3 we are importing. That's my own estimate, because if 24 million tons is the consumption, we are importing close to 16 million tons. So about 2/3 we are importing. So definitely it's a cause of concern. And of course, we are producing other things as far as food is concerned. It's only edible oils, which is the main problem. But yes, it is a matter of concern. And you see, worldwide, if you see the producing countries, they are at liberty to jack up their own economies, and use it for biofuels. Why not? I mean, today if you take the case of Indonesia, they are diverting something like 15-16 million tons into biodiesel, almost 1/3 of what they produce. They consume only 10 million tons and they export about 25 million tons. So what happens by diverting 15 million tons to biofuels? They jack up the price of the remaining 25 million tons, which is exported. So they reduce dependence on imports of petroleum and jack up the price of the 25 million tons of the oil which they export. It is economics for them. And every country who produces will try to jack up prices of what they produce. So it has to be expected. So that is why we need to have self-sufficiency, at least to a certain extent. I used to say this 10 years ago.
Still saying it.
At least whatever extra demand each year, at least let us have a target that should be produced domestically. What we are doing is the extra demand also we are importing, which means imports are increasing every year. You stop the imports at this level as a first target.
No, I just had a follow-up question on that. So it is a moving target, as you see. We've been saying the same thing for some years, and we're only importing more and more. So, by the end of, let's say, 2030, are you making any calculations on where we really could be?
See, Manisha, if now the way things are heating up within the government, we heard the secretary today, if India is indeed serious on increasing the domestic edible oilseed production, which is definitely possible. If you can do it in other crops, why not oilseed? Issue of GMO, number one. A lot of land reforms required. Getting technology in terms of seeds. and giving the right price to the farmer. If we do all the three things together, we are today at 1 metric ton of per hectare in terms of soybean yield versus Brazil at 3 tons. So there is, look at the scope to increase. Look at where mustard, how we can grow in terms of sunflower. When I entered the sunflower business in the year 1991, there was zero imports of sunflower. Today there is zero production of sunflower. We have moved from where to where. So there is definitely a scope. So the figure, what will be in 2020, depends a lot on what we do on the domestic front. I wish that on the domestic front, we play a beautifully balanced role between consumer and farmer. Try to give that much of incentive to the farmer, I'm not saying not be bothered about the consumer. Sure. It's a very tightrope walk. You got to balance it beautifully. Consumer inflation, please see in the context of 40 years. Don't see it with last year. Because if last year prices were low, this year inflation will be there. But if you see 40 years ago and today, then you will realize inflation is not so much. So that's the point, you know. So otherwise, if you go at the same rate, then India will import over 20 million or 22 million tons by 2030, which is very high.
And the farmer is also a consumer.
And farmer also is a consumer. And if they earn more, it's benefit for the overall. I mean, see the bottom of the pyramid, the world has seen it, US has seen it, Europe has seen it, how much the farmers are supported. They are at the bottom of the pyramid, they are consumers also, and they are the economies of, they are the real growth in the economy and come from there.
With all this as a background, I'll wind this down with one final question on price sense. Do you see prices consolidating as we go ahead, or with the way the moves are, uncertainties in the international markets as well, are we looking at higher highs?
I am definitely bullish right now on prices for various factors. One of them is the biofuels. And if this US biofuels policy does actually take shape in January 26, because it is already there, but you know, because of Mr. Trump, uncertainties, a lot of people are saying they're not believing in it, but it's a reality, it's already a law, it's been passed. If that happens, you will see very, very high prices.